But it's a new video! Before I begin, I just want to give a heads up that I originally filmed this video 2 years ago in 2024, and it is now getting posted in 2026. So a lot of stuff has happened since I filmed this video. So some of the language and some of the pieces used describing the world at the time is a little bit outdated. There's going to be another video coming out soon talking about how to navigate it all and more applicable to what's going on today. Thank you. Enjoy the video. Okay, here we go. I'm just gonna jump right in. Today, we're talking about community and the industry. If you have watched any of my videos, you can probably tell that I like talking about community. There can be some heaviness with it, but there's also so much beauty with it. If you are a new burlesque performer, or if you are somebody who's starting to get your foot wet a little bit more. Maybe you've debuted recently and you're a few months, a year, maybe a couple of years. You'll probably learn pretty quickly how big of a conversation is always going on between, is burlesque a community or an industry? Today, I am going to assign myself the very fun task of dissecting that. So if you're curious and want to know what the grand final say answer is, because I am, of course, the authority figure of everything burlesque, not really, then please stick around and let's dive right in. So first of all, I'm going to begin by defining both community and industry, because I think it's very challenging to say what is burlesque in relation to those two without first understanding the definitions. And I'm going to begin with community as a noun. Even just doing a very quick Google search for a definition of some sort that is a little bit more formal than what I would come up with. A community is a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. In this case, it's burlesque and taking our clothes off. As well, it's a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. I think when I see so much of the conversations around community, we don't only hear conversations around, is burlesque a community or an industry? We even see conversations of people saying, is burlesque even a community at all, with all the drama? I think as a noun, burlesque is absolutely a community. Anything is a community. The science community, you have the film communities, you have identity-based communities, sports communities, anything that has a shared interest with multiple people is a community. And especially when they work so closely together, whether that is in the same town, in the same venues, even as we talk about burlesque across the world, we are connected through social media. As well as our performers, we're connected to our sponsors, to our audiences, to our fans, to literally anybody who wants to have anything to do with watching us entertain, be entertained, do the entertaining, build the costumes with us, build props with us, anything and everything. Communities are messy. They do not always align with each other. There's going to be thousands of people from so many different walks of life, experiences, identities. A lot of those are going to contradict each other. It is messy, but we are people together in the same space, in a shared space that coexist. Community is a verb. If you want to see something happening, if you want to see spaces be created, we can't always rely on other people to make those spaces. It's a lot to say everybody has to put in the energy, everyone has to create safer spaces, everybody has to educate, everybody has to teach, everybody has to call in, call out, accountability, honesty, transparency, etc., etc., etc. And then it's overwhelming. But for me, I do think that you want to be involved in that community, then be involved. There's people who are very loud and open about the work that they want to do. A lot of people choose to produce or choose to teach and talk about things that maybe were some of their hard experiences. Maybe they share some of their stories, and maybe they share some of their own lessons that they've learned. For some people, it is talking about, I didn't have someone to support me, so I'm going to support those who feel unsupported, or I'm going to create spaces for people of color, or for people with disabilities, or for fat performers. For some people, building community and being supportive is behind the scenes and not in the spotlight. And it is just checking in with people. It is just making sure that, have you eaten today? Or, hey, can we chat? Or, hey, I have a really great story. Can I tell you a great story? Being able to have these authentic moments with individuals without the intention of, I'm building community or I'm gonna build community. So often it's just connection. A lot of us were outcasts at some point and they found a home in burlesque and they found their people. Community is a verb because I think honestly we do have to contribute. So many people do want to feel loved and do want to be a part of community and do want to have a sense of belonging. We are human, that is very natural and normal, and people need people to survive and thrive. Part of that is mutually supporting one another and making sure we're sharing each other's shows, we are celebrating each other's wins, and it's very hard to scale community and look towards the bigger community when sometimes we just need to focus on our local communities, we need to focus on our individual circles, and I really encourage people to find your community within the community. Like I said before, there's so many personalities, there's so many opinions, perspectives, lived experiences, and I think you see elements of community all the time in burlesque, but the hard part is making sure we don't use that definition of community as a blanket statement as the entire burlesque community, because there are people doing the work. There's also people who don't do that, and people who criticize and gossip and judge and all these other things. By those definitions, a noun, a verb, I absolutely think burlesque is a community, a performance art that people can do. Anybody can do it. You don't have to have a degree. You don't go to school. Literally anyone. They take a class. Maybe it's a one-time class. Maybe it's a 10-week class. Maybe it's for an entire year. Some people decide that's not for them. Maybe they can't afford classes. Maybe they're not interested in classes. They just want to learn from experience, and they talk to producers, they talk to other performers to see how they get on stage. Just like Christina Aguilera in Burlesque the movie. She just did it. The fact that burlesque is open to anybody is really awesome. It's very accessible because of that, but it can make it messy at times. Before I go into all those pieces, I also think when we talk about, I keep wanting to say networking, what is it called? Industry. What is an industry? Right off the top of my head, industry includes money, communications, networking, putting yourself out there and hustling. It is a particular form or branch of economic or commercial activity. What kind of effort do we expend as burlesque performers? We make our own costumes. Some people work with costumers who make custom costumes for us or make headpieces or very specific parts of our costumes. We are buying services, we are paying performers as producers, making sure we are working on our craft. Of course, with money, there is an audience who is buying tickets to shows in order to be entertained. By that definition, very easily, is burlesque an industry? Heck yes. And whether somebody is choosing to do burlesque as a hobby or a career, there is money involved every single time. And to me, that equals industry. It is open to anybody. It is something that there is no real one path for people to do or industry standards with how to get into burlesque. That's great because it makes it more accessible to other people, and it also makes it very competitive at times. There are so many people, thousands and thousands and thousands of performers across the globe. Even if you don't think about across the globe, even in your own town or city, a lot of burlesque scenes have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who perform, but only so many opportunities to perform, only so many producers or venues or shows. A lot of cities and towns are very different. Some will have monthly shows, some have weekly shows with multiple producers, where some will have once a year or once every few months, once a season. When you have such a big bottleneck of so many performers existing but limiting opportunities, there can be so much that comes with it. When we talk about the challenges of burlesque, is it a community or is it an industry? So often, a lot of the conversations that I see at least are people talking about a lot of dynamics that involved seeing all of the cast who are the same identities, so all white, all thin, all able-bodied, all cisgender. We see people who comment on shows that are always the same people who are all friends. Is there space in burlesque for people who do it as a hobby? Is there space for people who do it as a career? Can you even make it a career? Why does this performer charge $500 to perform 2 acts when I am a producer? I only pay my performers $100, sometimes $20 depending on the producer. That's where it can get so messy. I feel like I'm talking about a lot of messiness in this video, but it's true. There can be a lot of messiness, as it can exist in any community, any industry. And what I find really interesting is when we talk about industry, often when I see it in burlesque, it feels like a lot of people define it as if it has to be one or the other. They put very strict, rigid boxes on both of those of what is a community and what is an industry, when there's so much overlap and there's so much gray area. And for me, I always think about burlesque similar to the film industry or Hollywood or the cooking industry or literally any other industry that also has a community element or that also has a hobby element. When I think of people who cook, nobody criticizes the chefs. Like the chefs who get paid, we criticize them about certain things. Maybe it's personality, maybe it's other stuff, but we know a chef is a chef. Gordon Ramsay, we know he's a celebrity chef. We're not criticizing the fact of, well, that's him. Everyone else is a hobbyist in the cuisine industry or the food in the food and restaurant industry. But there's also so many people who do cook as a hobby or who do bake as a hobby. There's so many reality TV shows, and these are just one area and one section of that industry. I don't know, nobody seems to question those. For some reason, at least as an outsider or someone who's not part of that, I'm sure maybe if I was a chef or I was somebody who cooked more as a hobby, I'd see more of those conversations. But from the outside, it looks like people understand like this is a hobby for someone, this is a career for someone else, but there's not the competitiveness of the two. It's like kind of people stick in their own areas of what works for them. Where with burlesque, it can be really complicated because we have no standards. There's a lot of people who are working to standardize a lot of things in burlesque, things like pay, making sure we all have equally representative shows that actually hire diverse casts. We see people who advocate for various levels of access to burlesque, whether that's classes being different rates for pay, making sure there's mentorship that's accessible, making sure that people can consult with one another and learn and there's not gatekeeping. And then we also see people who advocate for leveling up your burlesque. Every burlesque performer does it for different reasons. Whether somebody does it as a hobby, as entertainment for themselves, their own expression, whether someone does it as a career to pay the bills, there is space for everybody. But do I have the answer for how we all fit in and get along? No. I think it does take a team. It takes multiple people to continually have these conversations. And it is extremely hard to find that balance, especially when people have different definitions of what is fair, what is accessible. Certain things that foster safety and accessibility and belonging for one person can impede it for somebody else. One really big example for me that I see all the time is when we talk about burlesque as sexual empowerment, being able to embrace your body, seduce. Well, there's so many people who are asexual who do burlesque or who do it not for sexuality. People do it to have fun, to express other parts of their experiences, other pieces of themselves and their personality, whether that's comedy, camp. People do it to be political. People do lean into seduction if they want, but definitely because we see so many different definitions of all of those things and much more, I do this think there is space for everybody, and it's just going to take time for people to find which spaces, not necessarily which spaces are for them, because I think that is a very slippery slope suddenly to go into everything else. But it is up to performers to decide, do I want to charge my worth? Do I want to donate a performance for a fundraiser? Do I feel valued in this production working with this producer? If the answer is no, I don't have to do that. And if I find it is a space where safety is at risk, then I can tell people about my experience. And as a producer for myself, the constant balancing of trying to create safer spaces and just spaces for people, and the aspect of individuals trying to pay their bills, that's why I am so personally so passionate about minimum standards. And so, plus people are also on stage. We're not just on stage performing, entertaining. Burlesque does have a lot more things to consider for itself. People do take off their clothes on stage, so there is a level of physical vulnerability that is worth something. Yeah, so that was a little bit of a ramble. There's a little bit of just kind of me going on a little bit of tangents. There's not necessarily as much of a script as usual. I find it really interesting, especially because when we think about films, we're constantly seeing people go on strike for things like the writer's strike. We have actors' strikes, we have union strikes. So I'm not going to say that they're not fighting or there's not debates going on or arguments going on. For a lot of those industries, it's against the people who pay the bills still, of making sure the people who do the work are being valued and treated and compensated fairly. But we know it's an industry, and we know there's always different levels and tiers of the Hollywood level, of independent filmmakers, people who make TV shows, movies, specific genres. We know there's space for everybody, and we know it's competitive, and we know it's an industry. With burlesque, we get a lot more of criticizing, oh, it's not an industry, it's a hobby for most people. Oh, it's not an industry, it's other performers who produce shows. It's not an industry because no one makes real money from burlesque and we have to spend our own money to do it. And all these other different reasons. They can both exist at the same time. Anyways, in case you did not get the gist from this video, I agree that it's both community and industry. There's multiple layers to it, multiple levels. If you're a performer, if you're a photographer, if you are a producer, if you are a costumer, whatever piece you're interested in of the burlesque community or industry, you can find your space and you can make what you want of it. There's always nuances. Always. This is a little bit of my own thoughts just because I think there's a lot going on right now, and we're especially going to start seeing burlesque shifting very fast. We already have seen it shifting extremely fast these last few months. It's gonna only continue to shift over the next few years. We'll see what happens with it. Often when we see big political shifts, we see burlesque is one of the community industries that does get affected very easily and very hard, but we always survive, we always adapt, and it's always going to look different every year. I hope as we move forward that you are able to find the space that works for you and do what you need with burlesque, whether that is just do it because you enjoy it as a hobby, do it because you do want to make a career of it. And with that, I'm gonna ask a question of, what do you think? Do you think burlesque is a community or an industry? Why or why not? I would love to see your thoughts below. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye!